Welcome to the Shifting People podcast, where we go deep into the weeds with leaders on the front lines of people management in the service industry. We interview the best minds in HR and talent acquisition, along with owner-operators, franchisees, and general managers to bring you real insights that you can actually apply in your business today. I'm your co-host, Jeffrey Williamson.
And I'm Kathleen McDonough, and it's time to get to work. Today we have Jeffrey Boland Sr., Area Director of Operations at Postino Wine Cafe. Thank you for joining us, Jeffrey.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to be here. Appreciate your time.
Welcome. Grateful to have you.
Very grateful to have you, yeah. So tell us a little bit about you and your journey, how you got here.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I live and work mostly in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've obviously in my role travel a good bit more now across the country, mostly in the Southeast. So I started in the hospitality industry by accident. And I found my way here. I tell you, if you would have asked me where I would be like 20 years ago, the last thing I would have told you was working in the restaurant industry. So I was working in construction through the end of high school and start of college. I came home from college and I couldn't afford to go back. So I'm working full time, but I am a terrible employee. I have a couple of major issues that most employers frown upon, most specifically a deep dependency on drugs and alcohol. And so that drove a wedge between me and my employer. And so I was fired from that job and was lost and had no clue what to do. I called my mom and told her that I had gotten fired for like downsizing purposes or something, made up some reason. And she asked me what I was going to do. And I said, I just didn't know what to do. And she mentioned that a friend of hers, her brother-in-law, was the general manager of a Chili's that was opening up near us, and that I should run down and apply. So I went down to the Fairfield Inn where they were doing interviews before the restaurant opened, and I got a job there and started my career in hospitality. And I think I owe everything in my life to the hospitality industry. I met my wife. We were both servers at that Chili's. My first daughter was born while we were still working at that Chili's. My sobriety, in many ways, I owe to the hospitality industry today. I've been sober for 17 years, almost 18 years in April. And the hospitality industry completely shaped my life. And I think that the main thing that got me to leadership in hospitality is the real blessing of being surrounded by a lot of really amazing leaders who cared about me, who had the ability to see not just where I was at that moment, but also see like where I could go, even when I couldn't, and just had that faith in me. That was a big reason. And the ability to help people. And those two things, I think, really moved me towards leadership very quickly in the restaurant industry. I haven't looked back since. So yeah, that's a little bit.
Quite the journey. And congrats on 17 years sobriety. That is a huge milestone.
Thank you.
And yeah, so tell us a little bit more if you don't mind. I would love to, I'm sure we have a few questions on your background too, but tell us about your day-to-day right now, because Postino, a little different than other organizations.
Yeah.
Hospitality, I think no business is the same, but what's that look like?
Yeah, for sure. I am really excited to be a part of this team with Postino and Upward Projects as a whole. I was in a place where I was working in a role that I felt very comfortable in, but I was too comfortable. And I didn't see the growth. And eventually, I know for me personally, it's very important that I feel aligned with the brand. And when I say that, I mean, culturally, we need to be aligned. The second I feel like I'm not in a place that carries the same values as me, step one is we're going to talk about it. And then if there's no change, step two is I'm getting out of there as fast as possible. And that's not to say that I think this is true for everybody. I think everyone should approach it like this. That does not mean that employer is wrong or that they can't be successful. There's a ton of ways to do this. It just means that it's not the right fit for you. And you're probably not the right fit for them at that point. So I really feel like you have to stay true to those core values. So it was very important that I found a place that was aligned. And when I was approached by one of the recruiters, Liza at Postino, she connected with me through LinkedIn. LinkedIn has brought me more connections than I think anything, including this opportunity here. I really appreciate that. And quick shout out to LinkedIn. If you're not on, you probably should get on there and start posting. But Liza reached out to me and mentioned that they were looking for someone for a multi-unit role. And I said, yeah, absolutely, I'd be interested. And before it came to Postino, I was running between 9 and 11 restaurants for a majority of that time. And so when I got the call about this one, I learned that it was currently for 3 locations. And at first, I thought that was going to be a concern for me, that I was going to feel bored. I can assure you, I am so far from bored. And that's an incredible thing. I've never felt more challenged in a position in my life, which is incredible. The organization as a whole is so impressive. I would recommend that anybody listening, for you guys as well, to look up Lauren Bailey. Lauren Bailey is the CEO of Upward Projects, and she worked at the original Postino and was so impressive that her and Craig DeMarco became partners, and then they took this brand from one location, one concept, to multiple concepts, and by the end of this year we'll have 40 restaurants open. So she's an incredible individual, and all the people trickling down from there, what I've noticed is that everyone's very committed to the development of the people around them and the spaces that they all operate in. So I am currently the area director for North Carolina and Georgia. So we have a location in Charlotte, we have one in Raleigh, and we have one in the Buckhead area of Atlanta. And this year, at the end of this year, we'll be opening up in Plaza Midwood, Charlotte area, and then another one in Chapel Hill. And those will be 2 of mine as well. And we're just going to keep going. The goal, we want to get 6 additional locations after that in North and South Carolina. So we are aggressively hiring, developing, working with people, trying to find new opportunities, new ways to grow the brand in a really authentic and humble way. And I could not be happier with the decision. I joined the company in January, and it's been fantastic ever since.
Wow, amazing. There's quite a few things that you mentioned that I really want to touch on. And then towards the end, maybe we'll come back to some of your background stuff too that I really would like to get into. But the first one of the first things you mentioned after Derek's question was that the position you had before you left because you weren't aligned with the brand culturally. And that is very important, not only to you, but I think to like everyone, a lot of people, let's say these days. What are some of the like red flags or warning signs that you are not aligned? Maybe that you saw or that you've seen your colleagues or your friends in the industry experience?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And again, look, anybody's going to be able to go on my LinkedIn and see who I was with before I got to Postino. I want to make it clear that Max Hospitality Group is a fantastic organization with a bunch of incredible people. The thing that happened for me was if there's a misalignment on how we're approaching taking care of the restaurants and the people inside them. So if decisions are being made, for instance, we had some things, whether it be menu engineering issues or people challenges that we would approach differently. A lot of times I feel like that is something that is going to drive a wedge if you don't really have very clear communication on what's happening next. But as far as like the signs, if you're finding it hard to get engaged in your workday right away, you're not getting up and having a routine, and you find yourself maybe doom scrolling a little bit longer in the morning or taking your time to get engaged with everybody. You don't want to go to the office, little things like that. I think that's a big sign. I think another challenge is when you find yourself in meetings and your thought process about how we should move forward and the companies are in 2 different places. I think it's important that you bring that up and you ask questions. I don't think you just walk away silently. I don't think that's right either, but you do have to answer questions. So just to be very honest about what happened with Max was there was a decision towards the end of my time there to compartmentalize the role a little bit and change my involvement in the restaurants overall. So rather than working with all of the locations, I was working with a smaller number of the locations. And then someone else was working with the others. In my mind, after I let my ego run wild for a day or two and then finally came down and got some perspective and realized I needed to come from a place of understanding, we were able to talk through things a little bit. And what it came down to was I didn't believe that was the best move for the brand, because two different people operating two different parts of the same concept in two different ways creates it's like you're running two different concepts. And so I did say that, I didn't agree, but I would work with them as long as I could. And then we eventually made the change. So I think it's very important that you advocate for yourself, but you respect the fact that your employer, it's their business. How they operate is 100% up to them. You have to determine whether you can or cannot operate within that system and make decisions accordingly.
Yeah. And thank you for being willing to go into that, because I think, to Kathleen's point, especially in any industry, we see it a lot in hospitality where there are these sort of misalignments. I think a lot of people maybe don't identify that there are misalignments, that they don't really introspect enough to figure out what the issue is, and then they burn out of the industry as a whole.
Yes.
We see a lot of burnout. And so you mentioned what drew you to Postino and drew you to this organization. And now, of course, you are helping continue the culture and continuing to set the culture. So what are the things that are important to you in the role to distill down to the folks that you manage or that you work with in terms of the culture? What are the things that you really focus on?
I think that one of them, and I think this kind of ties into the first part of what you said a little bit as well. We have a habit, or at least what I've experienced in this industry, is we have a habit of peacocking a little bit, or like talking about how great we are all the time. So that's why I make a very targeted effort to let people know that I have no clue what I'm doing most of the time. Like, I'm all over the place. So people need to know that, like, you have failures as well. They need to know that you're vulnerable and that you're open. So a few things that I've been fired from a job in the restaurant industry, and I've been in positions where I was over my head. I've been in places where I didn't really think that I was aligned and I didn't handle it the right way. Like I said, it's very important to me that self-reflection, or from going through recovery, learning about how to take this personal inventory and being able to keep your side of the street clean. That's been a big part of my culture. So it's very important to me that people see me. If I make a mistake, that it's very public, that I communicate that with the people that it impacted. But baseline, I've got I like to do things in threes for some reason. I think it's effective. It's an easy way to remember things. But love, dignity, and respect. And then I have 3 non-negotiables. All of this I learned with another brand called Juniper Grill that I do have to give a big shout out to. Juniper Grill, fantastic culture, company based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They have 1 location in Charlotte, and I'm a partner in that location, my wife and I. But their culture is driven based on the principle that everyone in the building should be treated with love, dignity, and respect. And I think if I asked every single person in my organization what the number one most important aspect of a good leadership relationship is, they're probably going to say respect. In some way, they're going to say respect. I think that means a lot of different things to different people, but for the most part, they're going to say if they don't feel respected, they're not going to hang out. I think the one that catches everyone off guard is talking about love in the workplace. And what that really means is simply showing appreciation, that I'm here for you, I care about you, I want you to be successful. That's all that really is. So I think that love, dignity, and respect are the foundation of how I approach people. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to treat you in a way that maintains your dignity. You're never going to see me put your dignity at risk. And you're not going to see me allow leaders in our organization to put team members' dignity at risk. You're not going to call someone out publicly. You're going to do that privately and with respect. So I think those things really matter. And then the other thing is my 3 non-negotiables. Like at the end of the day, every company has different standards and processes, and our organization has a ton. We've been operating for a long time, and Lauren Bailey and her team have been growing this thing for a while. This is a powerhouse C-suite that we're working with. They know how to scale a business. So there's plenty of processes that have been built along the way, tech stack, systems, plenty of that. And everyone has to drop everything that they've done previously and relearn all that. And I can give you all the time in the world to do that. There's 3 things that I cannot negotiate on. 1, I want you to come in on time. I want you to come in 100% uniform. And the third is I want you to bring the right attitude to work. If we can do those 3 things and you can treat everyone with love, dignity, and respect, then we're going to be fine. And we're going to be able to navigate through anything together. I'll have you back all day, every day. And so really what that means is if you really break that down, it's treat others the way you would want to be treated and do it consistently every day. That's it. It's real simple. Now, talking about culture, so you'll notice too on my LinkedIn, I talk a lot. You'll do this. I do this thing on LinkedIn a lot too, where I give people shout outs because I just love it. Like, I know that there are a lot of people who have a hard time like celebrating other people because like you're in that competitive mindset. I don't say that as a bad thing. You want to be moving along as well. I have that too. But when I see somebody that I know and I've worked with and they're really like achieving what they want to achieve, like that fires me up. I get really excited about it. So I like to give people shout outs. On the culture front, there has been this wave probably since 2020 where people have really started using culture as like that big buzzword about their job. Everyone sat at home for a year, got on TikTok, and everyone talked about what was actually important to them, and they realized that their values were more valuable to them than whatever salary they were getting. And so it created this perfect storm situation, in particular in the hospitality industry, where people were saying, I'm not willing to tolerate this anymore. So then everyone started saying, oh, we have a great culture. Okay, define what that means. Which this is our company culture. And there is one man that I know who has created the clearest picture of what culture actually means. And he did this by simply reading the definition of the word culture. Billy Schaefer is a mentor and friend of mine. We worked together at a restaurant previously. He is the vice president of the McClaskey Excellence Institute. He has a podcast with Dave McClaskey as well, and he runs restaurants. He looked up the definition and saw that, like, from an anthropological perspective, when we look back in history and we look at civilizations, we know their culture based on 5 anthropological pillars. The first one is verbiage. The first one's language. We can tell how the ancient Romans were because we see the language that was written, and we've been able to translate that and interpret how they operated. The second one is rituals. So rituals for us would be like, hey, we do lineup every day. We do a line check every day. And the other 3, you're going to have to interview Billy to hear about or read his book, because I don't want to steal all his thunder. But when he explained this to me, it made so much sense. And I use it inside my organization now because it does change the way people view when we talk about culture. It's not just being nice to each other. It's intentional behaviors that create a set of standards that people know they can operate within. So that's a fence, right? A fence is an immovable object that is stationary at all times. So if your culture is the fence, and it stays in the same place. Everyone knows exactly where they can and can't go without getting hurt. But if I come in and the fence is here, and then Kathleen, you come in and the fence is out here, and then Derek, his fence is real tight like this. Somebody's going to get hurt. The
Yeah.
fence is you controlling your environment. And I'm a big believer that we could spend far more time focused on those cultural standards to hold that fence in the right place and be in a much better place than continuing to focus on, I don't know, the right light bulb. It's still very important, but I'm saying don't put more effort into your light bulbs than you do to your culture. That's backwards.
That's great advice. Derek's fence is very small fence.
I
Derek.
picked up on that about him. Yeah.
I take offense to that.
But no, I really appreciate you mentioning Billy Schaefer. That's something we're always asking of our guests is who can you recommend? What can you recommend? I think a lot of our listeners do want to know more about culture and how to build a great one or what defines it and and I think that's a great resource for them. So thank you for mentioning that. And it helps me bring us in a direction that I wanted to get to because you mentioned Billy. And then another one that I know you pay reverence to or look up to is Jesse of the Savannah Bananas. Posted about him, and he's great. I think to preface it, your post was mentioning very specifically that he's not the most proud of a 42,000 person ticket wait list. He's most proud of a 1,200 person employment wait list, which that blows my mind. It's amazing. People are begging to work at his company and like from your post here. But his entire ecosystem is like different. And he does this thing where it's when someone applies, they don't want a historical resume, they want a future resume. Two very cool concepts here. One is the idea of a future resume, and one is the idea that, how do you get a 1,200 person employment wait list? Because doesn't everyone want that? So I think the first one, the idea of the future resume. From your perspective, what is it and why is it like so powerful, or how could it work? What is that, if people are wondering?
Yeah, I'm such a big fan. I can't be the only person that's seen just the meteoric rise of Banana Bowl, and not just Banana Bowl, but the Jesse Cole brand. Like, him and his wife are doing amazing work. They started Bananas Foster. They foster children as a family, and they've developed this network of people that are taking care of children that need us the most. Like, these people are moving with passion and confidence, and it's just incredible. I know he's a speaker for the John Maxwell leadership training now, and I've been trying to swindle employers left and right to pay for me to go for a while because I really would love to see him speak in that bright yellow suit. So hopefully someday, Jesse, if you hear this, man, I'm a big fan. Yeah, I think that this idea, how the future resume, the subconscious signal that sends is we want to know about your future. I think you have to do it intentionally because a lot of times people have heard or you've seen movies where they're like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And it's a kind of like a trick question.
Yeah.
Oh, I see myself working hard for you, sir, and making you millions of dollars. So you have to be really intentional about it. But I do believe that this is something that Postino is doing very well. When my boss, Lissa Hamilton, who is an absolute beast, she is a public speaker as well. She's a pastor. She is an incredible operator. She's worked for brands like Shake Shack and PF Chang's and is now obviously with Postino. And one of the things that she asked me coming on board was something along those lines, but she prefaced it by saying, look, we're moving. Like, we're continuing to grow. The last thing we need is somebody who is complacent or just wants to be, where they are. We need people who have a desire for growth. I want to know what you want in the future. And she was looking for me to say, I want your job. And being in that mindset of growth from within and developing your organization, I think that's the biggest thing. If you are focused on growth from within and you make that holistic, you don't make that when restaurants open, you grow. It's you grow so that we can eventually open restaurants. When you truly just make it about the individual's growth, then things really start to change. So I think that's a major part of the future for organizations is there has to be a significant investment into people development and taking care of your people, whether that mean you're providing additional benefits, whether it's growing your healthcare resources for your team, or you're adding in leadership development. I know with Postino, we're a wine cafe. So for salaried leaders, they can, if they pass the level 1 SOM, the company pays for it, reimburses them for it. That's a development thing. I worked for a brand who gave everybody a $100 a month health and wellness reimbursement. So you could go get a massage or get your nails done or whatever. And they had a $200 like professional development reimbursement. Take any course you want, you pass it, we'll pay for it. We'll pay $200 towards it on a monthly basis. So being really intentional about investing into your people. And I think the reason that works is twofold. One, I think it is going to help you attract top talent. But number two, it's going to weed out people real fast. And that's what you need, right? When we talk about being able to hire people, like you really need to be able to weed people out quickly. And that's just how it is. There's nobody who's more people oriented and culture oriented than me. You are going to have people that you're going to have to remove from your business for it to continue to be successful and scale and move forward. So I think that allows you to do those two things. I do think that the wait list for that you mentioned as well is a really cool topic too. I think that how cool would that be to wake up every day? I think of, if you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street, they write that article about him where they call him the Wolf of Wall Street. And the next day he comes in the building thinking his day's over. And everyone, please take my resume. How cool would it be to walk into your restaurant every day and then please let me work for you? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I love that scene. I think about that scene a lot, actually. People
I
just,
bet you do in your business.
I do, yeah. So people like, resume here. I think about it, but there's a difference between posting on a job board and get it these days. Obviously, you can post on a job board and get 100 applicants for a position, right? There's a difference between that and what Jesse has built in like having a 1,200 person employment wait list, right? There's a difference, right? It's not just people passively applying to your posting for a job. It's people that are fans of you as an organization, a company, an employer, right? That really see what you're doing and want to grow with you, work for you. A lot of the things you mentioned. And I think I love it because we know that Jesse and the Savannah Bananas, all the things you mentioned, they have these great practices as a company. And I think that's what people are drawn to, right? A lot of people these days, I guess we'll say, don't just want to work for a company because of the pay. They want to work because of them as a whole. And we got into it on a recent podcast with Burton Snowboards because they deal with the same thing where it's people's dream to work there. So you mentioned a few things, but I wonder if there's anything else like you would say a company could do to move in that direction of having a 1,200 person employment wait list.
Yeah. So I know that what Jesse really talks about, and I think they've done a really great job, first of all, about being very present. So if I were to get on my phone right now and I were to scroll any social media, within probably 20 posts, I will see Jesse's face. And I'm very much like within the target demographic, but I've also engaged in his content a lot. But he's accessible because of that content. And I think that's very smart. I think the way that you do your content is important. I have a bit of a marketing mind and it excites me, but being really intentional about that is important. And so when Jesse is on social media, he's not selling tickets. It's not this whole, hey, come down to the BB&T Park and see the Savannah Bananas, come down to Bank of America Stadium and it's only $47 and come check us out. He's storytelling and he's being personal and he's being vulnerable and he's sharing about others. He's talking about his daughter and coming out on the field and leading the take me out to the ball game, or he's talking about players who got the chance to come play there and how it like changed their lives. He's openly sharing their financials. So now we all know how much everyone in the organization makes. That's super intentional. You don't think that there's a ton of minor league baseball players that saw that the average player in banana ball makes $100,000 a year and thought, wait a second, what the hell am I doing on this bus? Why am I not trying out? That's very intentional. So like for all of the heart, like the man is a savvy businessman as well. So I think that those things are very smart. I think that being really intentional about things is important as well. So when he created this fans first culture, which is what they call it, they look at everything that they do and they run it through that same funnel. Is this fans first mentality? So are we going to raise concession prices? Is that fans first mentality? Are we going to change the cost of the ticket? No, that's not fans first mentality. But then he clarifies your biggest fan needs to be the people that work for you. Your biggest fan has to be your employees. So he's creating this environment where people are going all over the country. And then after every game until 2 a.m, they're sitting there having meetings and like calling each other out for things they did throughout the night. He's created this environment where everyone there is very intentional about wanting to be of service to someone else. And that's what works for that environment. Now, in, let's say, the restaurant industry, to me, it seems fairly simple. Look at the things that the restaurant industry has lacked over the years and find creative ways to fill those gaps. So it's hard for hourly team members to afford health insurance. So what if we were really dedicated to our teams, and so we decided to find a way to take on more of that cost? One of the things that we have is called Healthy ESU. It's $10 a month for my whole family. I could call a doctor while we're sitting here right now, if I was not feeling well, explain to them that I was feeling well, and within 30 minutes, without a copay and only $10 a month, a medication would be sent to the pharmacy, and I'd be able to pick it up today. I think mental health support for people in the industry, that's a huge part of it. And that's both providing them support outside the building, but also creating an environment that's conducive as well. And there's another great podcast called Heard, and their tagline is putting the rest back in restaurants. And it's all about mental health support in the industry. And there's so many things that we can do to provide support. One of the things that we did at Max was I learned about interns, therapy interns. So therapy interns are highly educated students who are in the final stage of their schooling, of their education. And they have to have a certain number of clinical hours actually spent in one-on-one talk therapy with people. Interns are free. So we set up the opportunity for everyone in Max Hospitality Group, every employee could call this one therapist's office, tell them they're with Max, and they would get set up with free talk therapy, whether it be virtual or in person, for the entire year. And while the students were in training, and they don't do anything without a licensed therapist signing off on it. And it just creates you can find these relationships and just create new opportunities to support people. Another big one is just letting them be heard. Stop looking. Yes, we are professionals, and so are a lot of the hourly team. A lot of your servers are pros. They've been doing this for a long time. So listen to them. So one thing we do at Postino is we have what we call a real talk. I just finished mine in Atlanta. So every other quarter, I go and the managers are not allowed in the room. It's just me and the hourly team. And they can tell me everything that they want. They want to share advice on food, culture, management, facilities, tools, whatever they need. They share it with me. I take it back to, we call the corporate office, the lab. I take it back to the lab, and things are implemented annually based off of those discussions. So it's being intentional and really caring about people. And then Don't say we can't do that. Say, how can we? Don't start the conversation with, there's no way we could pay more insurance. It costs too much. How can we make that happen? What are the things that would need to change for us to be able to do that? And just be open to the conversation. We have not done a great job over the decades of representing the hospitality industry in a great way. So we're seeing a lot less people wanting to join the industry. A lot less young people have any interest in hospitality at all. Yet it is one of the easiest entry points for any career. And you can do very well in the industry, and people don't realize that. But we have to be really intentional about some of the other things to start attracting people, like high quality talent, to the industry again.
Yeah. So much to unpack. Like, I think it's spot on. You mentioned a little while ago, like the recognition of culture and development and investing in people turned a corner. It's been long coming because you've had some companies like the Starbucks out there was one of the first companies that started to do like health benefits and there's been this slow pull, but then there was a real turning point around COVID because exactly like you said, folks just said, wait a minute, what am I getting out of this industry? Because I feel like I'm putting a lot in. It's a labor of love, right? And so I really like the mentality of just flipping the narrative, right? And I love that you gave some really specific examples of for so long, the industry just said, that's just not, we just can't afford that in our industry. We just can't do that. And that was the end of the conversation, right? Rather than, okay, let's go bottom up here. What could we do? And I think maybe some people get hamstrung on, to your example, right? Health benefits. So we can't afford to fully subsidize a plan, blah, blah, blah. Where could you start though?
Yeah.
What's the smallest incremental improvement you could do towards that? Set the goal, but you don't have to turn that switch on completely right away, right?
Yeah, it's not all or nothing. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So many things. I do want to ask you a little bit, Jeffrey, because I like that we've brought it back to Postino as well. I'm curious how you're thinking, because you mentioned right at the start, the company is in growth mode, right? And obviously with growth comes lots of good things, right? More resources, ability to do things like health benefits, and you have a bigger pool. But at the same time, that's where culture can really get challenged, right? So many companies grow too fast, and then they have to say, whoops, we lost our way. So I'm curious how you're being intentional about that, or what's on your mind as you're thinking like going through this growth phase to really hang on to what's been built.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. And the company really put a lot of thought into that going into this growth mode as well, because we're officially coast to coast. Like the company's founded in Arizona. We have restaurants in California, Colorado, and then Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, and then here in North Carolina. So I can think of few things in the industry more challenging than bringing your entire culture from the West Coast and making sure it makes it all the way here in North Carolina. That is incredibly challenging. So as an organization, I got to give credit that they have consistently looked at how can we continue to make that stronger. And so we have 2 restaurants open in North Carolina, and we're opening 2 more at the end of this year. So we're going through the same cadence again, as far as like how many and how far apart they are from being open, because they're pretty close together. And so I have to give credit to a few people. Again, LB Lauren Bailey is a titan in the industry. My boss, Lissa Hamilton, and her boss, our COO, Michael Wong, are 2 people that have come into this organization over the last few years and really been intentional about what we're adding into the environment. So there's a couple of things that we're doing as an organization that I think are making a big difference. One is we are finding ways to attract internal talent to transfer from one place to another. How easy of an easy button is that? If you can make it work, let's find people who understand the brand, the culture, and have already executed at a high level and say, hey, do you mind doing that again?
Absolutely.
We asked the people, Melissa asked her people, what would make you move? And we got feedback on that. And we've implemented things to create that opportunity or make that transition a little bit easier for those people. We also are taking everyone in the organization who is new. So I've already had the chance to visit Arizona and see the organization, but I've got a bunch of brand new managers that I've been hiring over the last 2 months that have not. In the coming months, I'll be taking a group of them to Arizona for 3 or 4 days, and they're going to see where it all started. They'll see the lab, they'll see the original restaurants. We'll have intentional meetings set up with Lauren and culture and learning and development and marketing and beverage, getting some time to learn more about the wine and investing in them while also pouring the Kool-Aid, if you will. So we're doing both things at one time. And I think that anytime, look, even just telling somebody, hey, I want to invest in you so much that I want to fly you across the country, for a lot of people, they're just impressed by that. But on top of that, what we're going to do is we're going to spend some really intentional, thought out time with you to make sure that you understand the assignment and that you understand what we're really about. And so that is a huge part as well. I think that one of the easiest things you can do from a leadership perspective is just communicate. So when I was helping open Juniper Grill in North Carolina, anyone who's opened a restaurant before knows that construction schedules are more suggestions than steadfast rules. We had some extra time on our hands and we started hiring people months in advance. And I spoke to every single I probably did well over 1,000 interviews personally. And then every single person that we hired, I text or called every person on a weekly basis for months, engaging with them, making sure they're good, keeping them aware of what's going on, inviting them to lunch, doing anything we can to keep people engaged. I think that sets a tone that you do have to be ready to deliver on. If I'm going to be that way now, I need to be the same way in the long run. So there has to be a certain consistency to how I do things. But I think that's a huge part of it. And the last thing I think is we talked about it a little bit, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but understanding the hiring path, like how you're going to get to the team that you really need. I think that's important. You want to protect your culture. You need to fire people faster. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an absolutely massive thing you just said there that I don't think gets talked about enough, but I think many leaders run into this problem of opening new restaurants, things getting pushed back, and trying to keep like, when do I hire? Oh, I hired someone and now it's 3 months later and they were expecting to start working a month before. And what you said about communicating very openly and very frequently about that timeline and staying in touch with them. You can't expect to hire someone and say, oh, you're going to start April 1st. Never mind. It's March 1st. Never mind. It's June 1st. You've lost them, right? Like you need to start that relationship and the culture before day one when you're opening a new place. I really love that you mentioned that. How do you do that?
Do the right thing, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we were opening Juniper, that was one of our focuses, or one of our like real like battle cries almost. Do the right thing, period. So when we were opening that restaurant, we were very intentional and about communicating with everybody, and we still screwed it up, but we fixed it. When we finally got everyone into the building for training, we had 2 training sessions every day, a AM and a PM training session based on availability and schedules and splitting the team up in half. We finished the AM session of the first day, and then in walks someone who says, "What in God's name are y'all doing in here?" So we're training for a restaurant. Who told you could be in here? Well, our health inspector. He doesn't tell you. I tell you. This was the electrical inspector who apparently, through miscommunication, this was missed. We were not supposed to be in that building. He kicks us out and says, "You can't come back in until I do your inspection, and I'm not coming back for 3 weeks." So we had to sit down and call every single person on our team. But again, do what's right, period. Not do what's right if it works out. Do what's right if we think we can afford it. Do what's right, period, and trust that the right things are going to happen. We called every single person and said, hey, we got a situation. We can't train and we can't start for 3 weeks. What we're going to do is we're going to pay you for those 3 weeks as if you were already training, because we committed to you that you would be earning during this time, and we're not going to go back on that. The only thing I ask is that you come back. And 100% of those people came back.
That was going to be my question.
Do the right thing.
People. That's amazing.
It was a significant investment. We had double the amount of employees that we needed for the long run because it was a new opening, and we were being very strategic about that. But we believed that doing the right thing was doing right by everyone, because we said we would be open by this point. You can leave your jobs. And so we paid them. And we worked out a plan where everyone got paid the same amount on a weekly basis to just stay home and like, all we ask is that you come back. And they did.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's the kind of thing that those employees all talked about for a long time. And then even later, when you had new people come in, I am sure that you had employees that had gone through that opening and said, you know what this company did? And I love that example because it's such a good example of culture really is tested when stuff hits the fan.
Yep.
It's not like when everything's going, yeah, we could pay bonuses or we can whatever. It's when you're already probably construction budgets also go over everything, and then you're stuck with this like dilemma. That's like the real test.
100%.
Jeffrey, I can't believe that our time has blown by. We're definitely going to have to do a part 2. I literally thought I was hoping we still had more time.
It's been an hour.
I know. It really has blown by. There's so many things. I want to listen back, and then like we could pull out so many things that you talked about that we could really expand on. But
there's a list of things that I had that I wanted to get to that we didn't even. So yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to. This is really engaging. I love you had a really good balance of the concepts, but also the stories that I think listeners will really appreciate. For those of you who want to get a little more from you, even in between part 2 of the episode, where can we guide folks who want to follow you and the Postino journey, but also just you sharing some of your thoughts?
Yeah, just find me on LinkedIn. It's Jeffrey Boland Sr. I'm also known as the culture coach on there. It's like my little tagline. So you'll see that on there. It's me. Look up Postino at postino.com or Google Upward Projects to see all our other concepts and where we're going next. And yeah, I'm super down for part 2. I love chatting with people about this industry. So I'm just really appreciate y'all's time and energy throughout this whole process. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
We'll put all the links below, postino.com, Jeffrey Boland Sr.'s LinkedIn. I'm telling you, it is an amazing follow. It's one of my favorite follows. So definitely go follow his LinkedIn. Lots of content, lots of really good specific content. Thank you so much for being here, Jeffrey.
Of course. Thank y'all very much.
Awesome. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Derek.
Kathleen.
Wonderful episode as always, but maybe it's the coffee, but I'm especially jazzed about that one.
Yeah, what a great we've recorded this on a Monday. Often it takes the energy's maybe a little lower. That felt like we really could have continued for probably a couple hours. Jeffrey really covered so many important topics, and I loved the real tangible examples that he gave. I think that was really helpful because when you talk about culture, it's so easy, and if you're practicing it all the time, it's easy to just talk about like the concepts, what you've learned from other organizations, what you pulled, but what does that mean? So I loved that he really went into that kind of thing.
Yeah, and he's very quick to obviously call out and other people, and
a lot of shout outs, a lot of praise. A lot of
shout outs and praise. Yeah. And I think that's like speaks volumes, but also very quick to offer tangible, practical things and also places you can find
resources. And
that's the word I was looking for. Resources. Yeah, like a lot of call outs of good resources all throughout the episode, right?
Yeah.
I think love that because we are always looking for resources for each of these, right? Like we're a resource, but also there's so many things out there to be like, what are other people? I'm always wondering,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
are other people reading? I don't want to get stuck in just my own.
Yeah,
But
I think especially this service industry in general, I think is like maybe just a little quieter about it too. And yeah, we've been trying to ask our guests a lot more, and it was great that Jeffrey just naturally included a bunch of those things, which I think anyone listening likely is doing so because they're trying to invest in learning and continuing their growth. So it's always great to get more recommendations.
Yeah. And I also, a theme I noticed, he mentioned that from his, and I'm not remembering the name of his previous employer now, but his previous employer and his current employer both he mentioned not shy about implementing things, right?
Yes.
And I think that is to go back to at the very beginning of the episode, he mentioned being aligned with your employer culturally. And I think that's a huge thing for him, it seems,
Yeah.
is the ability to act right, do the right thing, and implement things when needed. And I think that was maybe not a theme throughout, but just something I noticed in him and something he advocates for that I think is a good takeaway for people.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. And I think just with so many of the different stories, I love the story right at the end about how they paid employees when there was that construction delay. There were just a lot of good, like, backstopping stories that really solidified this is what this actually looks like in practice. And yeah, I think sometimes, like in some of our recordings, we have a very clear singular theme or couple themes that we call back to. I feel like we ended on, man, there's just so many more
Mm,
topics or themes we could explore. We ended up with a list of themes to future explore.
absolutely. And we will. We absolutely will. But for now,
But
Derek,
for now,
what is your shifting question?
yeah, and like many of our episodes, it's really hard to narrow it down. But there was one specific thing that he talked about where I actually I started to think about it so much I had to pull myself back into the conversation to make sure we were attending to that. But it really made me think. And he credited Billy Schaefer with this sort of concept and thinking of talking about like how anthropologists look at ancient civilizations and how they study those kind of tribes and groups and how they piece together what was the culture of these people, right? And what made them different. And he mentioned what researchers would typically look at. And I just thought that was just a great lens and test that any organization can use, which is imagine 100 years from now, someone is researching businesses and trying to document and archive whatever, and they come across your organization and they want to understand like what was unique about them, what was unique about them as a culture, right? Like what made this company successful, what were the ingredients? And the question is, what would they find? And is there actually enough there, whether that's through your websites, your online materials, podcast episodes you've done, things like that? Do they have enough there that they could actually really piece together what you actually think of as being your culture? And of course, if it seems like there might be gaps, that's where you can maybe think about what you could focus on, documenting a few more things, doing a little bit more to really put yourself out there, whether it's like on your careers page. You and I look at careers pages all the time and see opportunities missed to really highlight those things. But anyway, I think it's just such a useful lens to kind of this like retrospective lens to really diagnose and assess where you're at.
Yeah, I absolutely love that because you don't realize gaps until you start looking at things through someone else's perspective, right? And so
Right.
looking through a perspective of someone 100 years from now and saying, what was the secret sauce of this company? What was their secret sauce? I think you'll start to realize like maybe not enough is written down or documented about it. And I'm sure that you have that, right? Every employer has that. And great question that if you cannot find it or if you don't have it, maybe it's time to create one, right?
Yeah.
And it's never
Yeah.
too late. It's never too late to create or document. And I would just to build on that, looking through the lens of someone today, take yourself out of your being you looking at your company. If someone today wanted to know about your culture, how are they finding that? What are they finding? And then, very importantly, these days, how are they finding it? Because there, like you mentioned, there's so many places to go to find out about a company's culture. Is it TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or website or podcast, or what is it? How are they finding it? And is it easy for them to find? Because
Right.
to call back to the episode, there's a reason Jesse from the Savannah Bananas has a 1,200 person waiting list and people are knocking down his doors to work at him because people can find out about their company culture very easily.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's a great one to call out because I think a lot of companies historically, the assumption was if they want a job, they're looking at the job board, right? They're just looking at job posts. And that's the only place I really have to try and craft a message. And people don't really read those. And it was just like not really invested in. But we know like workers, not even just young generation, like the young generation, right? But like workers now are actually like researching, right? They're going to Google, which by the way will default to AI search and summarize. And so it's finding what's out there or what's not out there, and it's gonna fill those gaps one way or another. I love that thinking of like where are employees looking now? How are they finding it? Really solid. Now, Kathleen, that was a question, but we'll give you another question because that was a build off. We were riffing, but do you have a shifting question yourself that you also wanted to pose?
I sure do, because we went through so many amazing topics that, like, I can't end it there on just talking about that one. I would really like to talk about another one and use my full shifting question, Derek. Thank you.
I'm not going to withhold that from you. Yeah.
So, Jeffrey talked about looking at what other employers in the restaurant industry aren't offering and then offering that. He mentioned affordable healthcare, mental health support, and a few other things. My shifting question for even just smaller employers, right? One location, you have one location. What are other employers in your local area offering for employees? Perks, benefits, all that, pay. What are they offering and what aren't they offering?
Yeah.
Where are the
Mhm.
gaps? And then can you provide those gaps? Because one, I think it's great for yourself, but then also for job seekers and employees in the area to have that. If, say, for instance, affordable healthcare is one, it's not offered in the area, and then you start offering that's great for the community. So
Yeah, everyone doesn't have to be offering the exact same thing, right? Different people have different needs, different people in their lives, place different levels of importance on different things. I love that thought as well. And so many organizations like study their competitors when we're talking about like their main products and their menus and all these other things to death, right? You and I have been to conferences with these organizations where they've conducted huge surveys of customer sentiment and this positioning, all this stuff. Often very little done on the employer employment side, which by the way informs all of those other differentiators, et cetera, et cetera. And I think back to like back in the ice cream store days when I owned an ice cream store, and for a long time I really had a hard time because we were right next door to a Starbucks. And it was really hard because you're like, geez, and we never really struggled like to find great people, but they were always they paid a little bit more. They have like really great benefits. You get like a free bag of coffee a week and all these other things. And I was just like, I remember looking at that and thinking, we can't afford that. We can't really compete. That's just a different thing. And over time, what I found was our differentiator was ridiculously flexible scheduling. We had a lot of high school, early college kids who have lives that are not predictable. And so we inverted how we did scheduling, and we would ask them, when can you work this week, and schedule around that. But that was just like one example where that became our differentiator as an employee. employer, right? You don't always have to be, it's not just about the monetary compensation. There's so much more you can offer. So I just really like that lens. I think it's super powerful.
Thank you for sharing that story, Derek. Honestly, that is such a good example because in my shifting question, it's look at what other employers in in your area are offering for benefits or perks to employees,
Yeah.
and then what can you offer? The first thought from people listening might be, I can't ever compete with what my
Yeah.
local McDonald's or Starbucks or Dunkin' franchise is going to offer. Why would I even try? But there are so many unique benefits and things you can offer to stand out and be different and that people actually really need. Flexibility is an amazing example of that. And
Yeah.
there are so many more. I want to
Yeah.
list them
Yeah.
all. Get creative. Get creative.
Absolutely.
There's so
Yeah.
many benefits that people, and now it's just getting me on a whole tangent of
I
unique
know, but
benefits. Oh my gosh. Because
yeah.
I've worked with employers on this stuff and come up with so many. And it's
Yeah.
one that we most recently were working with is an ice cream store that knows that it's a lot of like first jobs and people, but that's their perk that it's a family business. They're going to teach them how to work a first job and stuff like that. And that is such a unique thing, right?
Right. That they're actually welcoming to kids who've never had a job before. And like, they know they have to take the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. To that. And when we were working with that company too, we went and talked to the employees, right? And I think that's exactly where you start if you're an employer, right? If you're trying to figure out like, geez, what do we like? Go talk to your existing employees, right? And be like, hey, why didn't you go work at
Yeah.
XYZ next door? And that's where you start to get the threads of things that maybe you could really like double down on.
Yep. Absolutely. Oh my, amazing shifting questions. Amazing episode, Derek.
Yeah. I think we nailed it all around.
I think we did. Yeah. Yeah. Pat ourselves on the back for that one and move right along to the next one too, right?
Yeah.
Really great episode. If people want to follow, we plugged it earlier, but follow Jeffrey on LinkedIn. We'll include all the links. And I want to add one thing is just that, like, anything we talk about in these, if people have questions about it or like ideas or just want to bounce ideas off of us, like, we're happy to do that anytime too.
Yeah. Reach out. Let's riff on things.
We love riffing.
We love riffing. We love chatting. Ideas. Well,
Well,
yeah. For now, though, thanks for coming to work with us.
bye for now.
Bye for now.